Picture yourself in the autumn of 1917, somewhere between the shattered tree lines of the Ardennes forest. The ground beneath you is cold, damp, and unforgiving. Artillery thunder rolls across the horizon like an approaching storm that never breaks, and somewhere in the darkness, enemy patrols move with methodical precision. You are a scout, separated from your unit, and survival depends not on your rifle, but on your ability to become invisible. This is where the ghost shelter was born, not in survival manuals or training camps, but in the desperate ingenuity of soldiers who learned that the earth itself could become their armor. Welcome to a forgotten chapter of Fieldcraft, where thermal concealment meant the difference between dawn and a shallow grave. The concept emerged from necessity during the brutal winters of trench warfare, when soldiers discovered that body heat betrayed their positions as clearly as movement or sound. German sentries, equipped with early infrared detection devices, could spot the warm signature of a hidden man from remarkable distances, turning concealment into a deadly game of thermal chess. Forward observers and reconnaissance teams began experimenting with insulation techniques that trapped their body heat while blending seamlessly into the landscape. They learned from gamekeepers and poachers conscripted into service, men who had spent lifetimes understanding how animals disappeared into the forest floor. The ghost shelter, well, it really evolved from these conversations held in muddy dugouts, whispered between watch rotations when exhausted men shared what kept them alive. The foundation began with reading the land as if it were a tactical map written in shadow and contour. Soldiers sought natural depressions where frost settled heaviest, understanding that existing cold spots would, mask their thermal presence. A fallen oak or a cluster of dense spruce provided the skeleton, but honestly, the true genius lay in the layering. They salvaged rubberized ground sheets and metallized fabric from downed observation balloons, materials that reflected body heat inward rather than letting it radiate outward into the night air. These were carefully positioned inside a low A-frame constructed from branches that mirrored the surrounding deadfall, creating no unnatural lines or angles that would catch a scanning eye. The critical innovation was the air gap. Soldiers learned that 2 inches of trapped still air between the reflective layer and the outer debris provided more insulation than a foot of compressed material. Over this framework, they heaped earth, moss, and pine boughs in irregular patterns that mimicked natural decay, sometimes spending hours arranging the exterior until it looked like nothing more than another victim of the forest's slow reclamation. Building the shelter was only half the equation. Surviving inside it required understanding your body as a heat engine that could betray you with every breath. Soldiers learned to regulate their metabolism through controlled breathing and minimal movement, techniques borrowed from hunters who waited motionless in winter hides. They discovered that entering the shelter during twilight hours, when ambient temperatures fluctuated naturally, provided cover for the thermal transition. Moisture was, the enemy within. A single night of condensation could soak insulation and create visible steam plumes in freezing air. Ventilation holes, positioned at ground level, camouflaged with loose vegetation, created gentle air circulation that prevented carbon dioxide buildup while maintaining the thermal envelope. Men learned to eat cold rations before entering their hides, understanding that digestion elevated body temperature for hours afterward. Some carried small tins of petroleum jelly to seal any gaps in their makeshift thermal barriers, while others used charcoal from cold campfires to darken any exposed skin that might reflect moonlight or catch infrared scatter. Today, as you stand in your own forest with modern materials at your disposal, you're inheriting knowledge paid for in frozen fingers and sleepless nights of mortal vigilance. The ghost shelter represents more than just a survival technique. It really embodies the human capacity to adapt, to learn from the land, and, well, to become part of the landscape, rather than simply existing upon it. These soldiers, many of whom, never returned to tell their stories, left us a blueprint written not in manuals but in the collective memory of those who understood that invisibility was, in fact, the ultimate defense. Their Fieldcraft reminds us that sometimes the best technology is no technology at all, just patient observation and the willingness to let the earth, honestly, teach you its secrets. If this journey into forgotten survival wisdom resonates with you, go ahead and subscribe to Fieldcraft Chronicles and share this video with anyone who understands that history's greatest lessons are those learned under pressure in darkness, when really everything depends on what you know and what the land will give you.